Welcome to the Interface program. Today we have with us Professor Mangal Sundar at the Department of Chemistry, IIT Chennai. He is also the Chief Coordinator for the DTH Swayamprabha program, and he also was National Coordinator for National Project on Technology Enhanced Learning. It's a great pleasure, Professor Mangal Sundar to talk to you.
It's my privilege.
Welcome you to this program.
Yes, please.
Now, you have been working with this technology enhanced programs. You have been a teacher for a long time at IIT Chennai. And you also are a quantum chemist, a great researcher. And when you look at this whole thing, now with this technology learning experience that which you have, where the teacher stands now?
Okay. First of all, thank you for the interface interview. Teachers are, I mean, I'm a little bit reluctant to say this, but teachers are at crossroads of technology and educational research at this point of time. There are really important technological developments that we as researchers should follow and should contribute. But in a country of our size, where we have so many millions of students in colleges and in schools, and probably 3 to 4 times of that population not in schools and colleges, we also have a large social responsibility. So it is important for us to necessarily think about how to bring educational access in the first place, but good quality education from the best and the premier institutes that we have in the country. How do we make them accessible and available to the largest population worldwide? I mean, if you think about India, the demographic advantage is today, we are hoping that it would be a dividend. But if we don't spend the time in trying to build the students, educational and skills and in other sectors, it can become a demographic curse. Okay. So because a very large population of students who are not into the academic program, schools program, can also be the bane of the country. So we are, that's why I said we are at crossroads, but we have to really take the responsibility of ensuring quality access and quality content to everyone, irrespective of the geography, irrespective of the regional imbalances that we have, irrespective of the language barrier that we have, and the social practices. I think all these things will remain anyway, but if we can do the best of education to all of them, they will also change.
You have been in the teaching for a long time. You have been to many universities, and you have been also to many colleges where you actually give a lot of lectures, and you are also part of this National Technology Enhancement Program. Now, the classrooms have become smarter. Technology has transformed the classrooms. What about the teacher?
Okay. I will first of all answer the question, the statement that classrooms have become smarter. In a small number of institutions, in a small regional placement, yes, we have some of the best classrooms. But if you refer to the general internet classroom as is there, yes, many more things are available. And we as teachers are lagging a lot behind the technology development that has already happened. But please note that teaching is a profession that has not changed very much in the last 2,500 years. My colleague and with whom I worked for many years on the NPTEL project would refer to the current scenario as not a teacher-centric or a teacher-placed classroom, but a student-centric place where the teachers should probably be guides and facilitators and mentors, at least in higher education, if not in the school education. And therefore, teachers have to now think about this idea of what kind of mentoring role and what kind of technology access learning role that they have to think about. Yes, teachers are not ready yet in general, but I think some of us who are convinced about this, we have to take it on the missionary mode. And that's why the national missions have been launched in the last several years. More than one mission has been launched with the idea that some of us will take this message forward to all our colleagues and convince them that they have to actively take technology into their teaching. Technology not for communicating what they teach, but technology to be able to visualize and to be able to understand things better in a cognitive sense. That is the role of the teacher. We are not there yet, yes.
What of the changes that has happened in the past few years with many classrooms? Is that the blackboards or the green boards which we used to have, the big ones, they have vanished and become small whiteboards, and you have smart boards coming up.
Yeah.
Now, there are many who feels now the need that the blackboards or the green boards have to come back into the classrooms. Where do we actually balance this?
I can't answer the question whether we need the blackboards or whether we can get rid of it. I think that's very much dependent on who the teacher is and what method of teaching and knowledge imparting that he or she chooses. But I can say that even today, blackboard is definitely needed to teach, whereas a computer-aided tool such as a PowerPoint or any of the other smart classrooms that you talk about basically help you spread information. And if you want to say a lot of things in a short period of time and tell the students to go back and think about them better, yes, you provide some of those things in the electronic board, and you can use the electronic classroom to quickly give them the information. But if you want to teach, I think if you want to teach mathematics, PowerPoint is the poorest choice in my opinion. And if you want to teach physics or chemistry or biology for that matter, or even chemical reactions, I think you have to be very careful about what technology tools you choose, because knowledge or the instructional method is not just that of communicating information through electronic means. Instructional method is very much dependent on the faculty members' teaching, learning, and intellectual ability to visualize where it's difficult to visualize, where I have struggled in understanding this, that I should do better, and tell the students to get things more quickly. I mean, this analysis has to be done. Therefore, there is I don't believe that the traditional classroom will disappear. The traditional classroom will undergo some redesign, but all the elements of teaching and learning will still have to be retained. You may call blackboard an old style. An electronic tablet is nothing but an electronic version of the blackboard. Instead of chalk piece, you write using a pencil. But if you do the same teaching method, these two are not going to convey, one piece is not going to convey a better information than the other. On the other hand, if you spend time teaching, either of the tool is as good as any other. So I think it's a teacher's choice. In the NPTEL project, what we had done is to the extent possible, permit and enable the teacher to use technology the way he or she wants, instead of telling them, framework, do this within this framework. A framework by definition is a limit. A wrapper, on the other hand, is something that can close on any object if it is long enough. I would like to use technology more as a wrapper and not as a framework. So in that sense, blackboards are important if you want to teach really good concepts.
You have been teaching science at the premier IIT Chennai. Now, how do you feel, or what is your comment on the present scenario of science education in the country?
That's a current status, and we are partly responsible. I think we cannot simply say that the teaching today, the students are not interested in learning, the students have too many distractions, and they spend very little time, therefore I'm unable to communicate all these ideas. I mean, all these statements are true, but that's only half the truth. The other half of the truth is that, have I adopted to the changing requirement the way the students have adopted to the changing technologies, and finding what attracts them most? Have I become a more attractive teacher in the sense of providing the educational media using the language and the tools that the students are comfortable with. In fact, if you look at many colleges today, we say switch off the mobile before you come into the class, forgetting the fact that if you are a little bit more careful, that can be the best clicker device that you can have, and have the class with you all the time. Every 5 minutes, you can tell the students, okay, now send the signal to me. I have a clicker. The technology is not very expensive, but the mindset of our teaching is that avoid all the gadgets. Listen to me. I am the one who is going to tell you, and no interactions. This is a traditional style of our classrooms. It's not true in the West. But having said that, even in the West, the clicker technology is not something that is adopted by everybody. So part of the problem is us as teachers, but yes, there is a larger problem of a social change we are unable to face at this point of time, but we have to live through that. Generations will live through that. Better methods will live.
But there is also a concern that science education is about inspiring people into new thinking and experimentation. Now, with the current examination systems in India, particularly the entrance examinations, they have made the entire education system into a pressure cooker. Do you think that this has killed creativity?
Before I answer yes to that, I will also tell you the reason for the kind of pressures that we have today is that we have very poor infrastructure. With the millions of students we want to teach, look at the number of universities that we have, look at the number of colleges we have, and look at the number of teachers with really good academic qualifications that we have. Therefore, everybody wants to get into the better institute. The process of entrance examination in India today is a process of elimination. It is not a process of selection. You have to get 99% of the students out to get the 1% in. And if it is an elimination process, then all the social factors which are around them will try to build their group so that they will not be eliminated. The coaching centers are the result of that. You can't blame the coaching centers for what they are. The institutions like ours cannot do any better in saying we will devise a better examination system. We can't. When 100 students apply to IIT Madras, IIT system, for example, the joint entrance examination, I am told that the CBSE has more than 1 million students, maybe 1.5 million students writing the examination for only about 120 institutions, 23 IITs and probably 30 National Institutes of Technology and a few central universities. How are we going to place all these students? Therefore, entrance examination is not something that we can do away with. But our reliance on that being the only entry point and only entry mechanism with no regard to what the students do in their schools is where we have got ourselves into trouble. So if we can devise other methods, or if we can make 100 such institutions in our own zone slightly better by way of our teaching and interactions, such that students don't feel that if they don't get into an IIT, that their life is lost. If they don't get into an NIT, that their career is over. If they don't feel, but they think, yes, I can get from there, but I have to work harder. That is something we have to provide. And therefore, what the current system, the NPTEL and other projects are doing, in my view, is that they are opening the gates outward. They are not opening the gates inward, because it's not possible for us to admit more students. But definitely many of us can go out in the sense of internet. We can teach. Professor Anant, who is my former director, calls this as a Sishyakulam. It's not a Gurukulam anymore. Students don't come into the Guru's house. They don't come into the college alone. The college goes out. Evening, 5 o'clock, I decide I would listen to Professor Bala's lecture. Fine. Evening, 9 o'clock, I want to listen to an entertainment medium. Yes, it's there. I get everybody on my home, in my home, at a time when I want. I think that is what we have to enable much, much more. Then the students will also not feel that the entrance examination is going to restrict them. If they get it, they get it. But then the question is, why these institutions? It's the peer group interactions that happen in these institutions which are very different that makes these students better. It's not just the teaching and learning process. A bunch of students come together to the same institute and they share their ideas for 4 years or 5 years. They form networks, and that network is what we have to build. Therefore, good teaching, good network, these things have to be encouraged in the other institutions.
But is it not also true that creativity, skill, all these things should become part of science education?
I don't know. I mean, I can only say that creativity has been killed in our high school system itself, because our school education, unfortunately, due to the large number and also due to the non-availability of trained teachers, our school system itself is building the rote learning system. In fact, rote learning, in my view, is an oxymoron. A rote process cannot be a learning process, but everybody uses that. Therefore, I think we have to do this innovation in teaching learning process right from childhood, and we can't do it without the parents' involvement. Today, parents' involvement in school learning and teaching is to help the children with their projects, to help the children with the homeworks and so on. I think that should be delinked from the learning process. We have to have the parents play an active role in the teaching learning process of the schools. But these are new methods which are slowly coming. In a sense, I say all the problems that you are addressing are problems of, I hope, of a temporal phenomenon, time scale of maybe 20 years or 30 years. And we will learn enough. In that process, of course, one generation is definitely going to suffer. But that generation will hopefully also solve and come up with the solutions for the next one.
I agree that you have been working on a public platform which is totally non-authoritarian.
That's right.
And easy access one,
Yeah.
a technology enhanced or technology based learning process.
Yeah.
Now, what is your reach?
Okay. Two things. One is numbers. The other is the effectiveness. On the effectiveness, I cannot comment. The only thing I can say is an anecdote from my actual observation. A few years ago, when our what is called the admission, the students who get admitted to our program, master's program through the GATE process. GATE is an entrance examination that many of you know is the admission requirement for the masters in engineering and also for the PhD program in sciences. So in this inaugural program with about 600 students, I was asked to give a presentation on NPTEL by my Dean Academic Courses. This was after several years of NPTEL videos and contents being made available on the internet. So before I started my presentation, I asked a question to the general audience. How many of you here have heard of NPTEL for me to give a lecture about it? Out of 600 hands, 550 of them went up. Then at that point I said, I don't think I need to tell you what NPTEL is all about, but what more can you learn about NPTEL after having been in IIT, and how much more you can contribute to this program so that your other fellows and friends who are outside of your system will also benefit from them. So in that sense, the impact here is people are using it, but I don't have a quantitative information how much it has helped them. In general, a large number of our faculty, IIT generally faculty, feel that the current master's students that we do on parallel entry to the institution, because we have BTech entry, we have MTech entry, we have PhD entry. A large number of these current parallel entry students are much better prepared with the subject than they were probably the generation was about 5 years ago. So I have a feeling that it is anyway helping us in getting better quality of students. I'm sure this is applicable overall. In terms of the numbers, YouTube's channel that we run on the NPTEL, it was initially started with my input in November 2007. It's almost 10 years. The number of views in YouTube on the IIT channel alone is 265 million. So I believe that there is a large viewership. I don't know what they are viewing, but even if 1% of them are serious about science, then that's 100 times more numbers than we can ever have from IITs altogether. Therefore, I think we should not worry about, are we reaching everybody? What is important is, are we making a change, and are we making a transformation? Are we helping towards the transformation? I think that's what we should worry about. So in that sense, the numbers are reasonable.
We have many web-based learning programs now, and many courses are there, even globally.
Yeah.
For example, IIT Chennai has several MOOC courses.
Yeah.
Many other universities and institutes are coming up with the MOOC courses.
Yeah.
And there are also international programs that are available now.
Yeah.
So, learning is one thing, getting a degree is another one.
Yeah.
How accommodative our university system has been, from your experience, in accommodating the web-based learning into actually gaining a degree?
Universities are not as accommodative as all of us would want them to be, and in my opinion, they should not. They should have their limits. The university system in India today is, of course, certification based, largely. X number of examinations you have to write and you get a certificate. The MOOC and the massive open online course that you are referring to, and other formats, we had a discussion on these things a little bit earlier, and the University Grants Commission had several meetings on them. The Ministry of Human Resource Development is constantly worried about the implementation policies of the MOOC. So the summary of all of this was that a communique was issued by both the All India Council of Technical Education for the engineering education and the University Grants Commission to the universities, that up to 20% of the overall credits in a university can be through online credits and courses that the university academic committee has approved. Today we have a large number, almost 25,000 lectures from NPTEL alone, and probably another 20,000 lectures from the efforts of the educational multimedia resource centers like this one, where we are recording our program. 20 of them have contributed to 30,000 lectures. So we have a large academic content, but the university has to do the syndication on what courses that it would permit for their students in various disciplines to credit. That is not yet a serious effort. We are lacking there.
Can you please explain what you specifically mean by technology enhanced learning?
Okay. My own classes, what I have been doing, I should go back to a little earlier. It was my PhD mentor, Professor Brian Sanctuary from McGill University, Montreal, who introduced technology teaching learning to me through his first introduction to macromedia software. So what I see as technology enhancement, if I understood a little bit of what he said, is that the teaching learning should be such that the technology helps the students to visualize things and to be able to interact with the system as they are learning through. And when they have, the question is that when you are studying a lesson, there are multiple parts to it. A technology enhancement in one form is that as you read a small part of it, have you understood that? The system should prompt the learner for inputs. And if the inputs are not the right ones, the system should direct the learner to go back to the right lesson and come back again. This is a cognitive process. Technology enhancement refers to precisely this cognitive learning process. NPTEL, NMEICT, SWAYAM, all these processes so far have been technology enablement and technology access for a large number of students. That's the first step. That's the communication. It's more like making things available to people, but we have to move towards cognition. I don't think many of us do that. One very good example of cognitive learning process that I'm very familiar with for many years is the OLI, Open Learning Initiative of Carnegie Mellon University for many years. If you have time, their OLI platform has a little more than 30 courses or so. These are done to very, very precise learning processes and cognitive methods. And the person who started this process many years ago is unfortunately no more, Professor Paul Goodman from the Carnegie Mellon university's School of Business, Tepper School of Business. He is also the one who kept on pushing me to move towards TEL. In fact, NPTEL, the TEL part of it is his, the acronym given by him, Technology Enhanced Learning, is that cognitive process is what you should address using the internet. And you do that, the learning becomes unbelievably smooth and easy for the learners.
We have a traditional classroom where there is a teacher and a student, and we have a generation gap.
Yeah.
In the new technology enhanced learning environment, you think the teacher student gap, this generation gap is going to widen, or it is going to?
At this point, it's too wide. It's too wide.
So how do you connect them?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, I don't know many things about technology, and I should not be ashamed of it. That's not my area of expertise. I should be ashamed of if I answered a subject question incorrectly, and I've been teaching that subject for 20 years. Yes, I understand that. So, if I have a question about a particular tool, usually the people whom I ask for solutions are not my fellow colleagues, but probably students who are 20, 30 years younger than I am. And the most familiar example I have is, if I don't know what my mobile is doing, I used to ask my daughter and my son, who are much, much younger than I am, and tell them, how do you do this? Within about 10 minutes, they will solve all the problems. And then tell you, they will feel so happy that, Appa, you don't know this, but I know this. Therefore, I think it's important. We should not be ashamed of accepting our ignorance, but we should not continue to remain ignorant. I think that's what a teacher's fundamental role is. We have a mixed view on this by many teachers because they don't want to say openly that they do not know. But if you say, I don't know something, that is the first step to what you want to know. I think that's important from the teacher's point of view.
You have been talking that you can actually positively use mobile phones for classrooms.
I think so.
Now, there is also a concern that students are getting more into the what they call the vertex or traps of the technology, like the WhatsApp, the Facebook, and so many things in which they lose their time. Or I would say the entertainment industry has taken over most of the areas in the technology developed processes, and the education has been sidelined. How do you think we will fight this out?
Mobiles, the students use for various things. I think that's one of your concerns. And the students are using Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. I don't see any of this as a problem. If I am not actually able to address the issues directly to the students, it's my inability, rather than the students' distraction of using the techniques. Second, we have a constant belief that everything that we say is learnt by every student or should be learnt by every student. It doesn't happen. Teaching is I've said this many times, teaching is a discourse or a delivery, sometimes beautifully orchestrated, sometimes poorly orchestrated, but it's a delivery. Learning is experiential. So what you are doing in a classroom is to trigger that experience and the start of the experience, and you are not communicating everything that the student should learn in the class. I mean, such a class is probably the most boring class, I would say. At the end of the class, if the student goes back with the thinking, I understood some things what the professor said, but a lot of what he or she said did not make sense to me. That trigger is most important. So I wouldn't worry about the students who are not listening to me as much as I should worry about the students who are intently listening to me.
I was also referring to the fact that for market forces, the entertainment industry has taken up much of the volume of the technology platforms, leaving not much space for the educational programs.
I wouldn't agree that there is no space. Problem is, we have not exercised our real estate on that. Okay? The most beautiful anecdote is again Professor Anand's anecdote. We had a little bit of a problem when we had prepared the 5,000 video lectures. in 2007, after the end of NPTEL phase 1, I had in the library between 8 institutions video cassette tapes basically for 5,000 lectures. And I kept on asking him, how are we going to distribute these lessons to colleges? In came a very, very important figure from Google, a vice president, Dr. Guha Ramanathan, and he had come with the idea that NPTEL had a large number of videos, and Google had just acquired the ownership on YouTube the year before or something like. So they were looking for videos to be put in on the YouTube. So if you say that the entertainment media has occupied the YouTube in the beginning, about 10 years later, please note that there are more than 1 million academic videos. And we started the process as well with a little more than 25,000 videos now. You know what Anand's anecdote was? When one of the directors refused to bring YouTube into the picture by saying YouTube has objectionable content, entertainment industry, okay? What Professor Anand is supposed to have said to him was that there is no problem if YouTube has objectionable contents, but we shouldn't have a problem of putting in non-objectionable contents, and we should put a lot of them so that eventually students, when they stumble on it, they stumble on educational materials as much as they stumble on the entertainment materials. So populate the sphere. I don't think entertainment industry is going to complain because its market is assured, but a lot of other students who would otherwise not be able to access any educational content and therefore forced to look into YouTube purely as an entertainment industry will now switch over, and they are on your side. Build your side. I think that's how it should be done. I don't think we should worry about the one media or one type of an industry taking over the other. We have this problem with IT industry in terms of scientific input of our students and so on, but these are all what are called a period, and a period has a lot of oscillations, and then if you take the period of oscillations to a very long period, you will see a general graph. Right now we are in the middle of individual oscillations, and therefore we see the spikes as the problems of our society. The spikes are not the problems. I think you have to look at the society over 100 years, what we could achieve. Therefore, we have to be consistent in our method.
Professor Mangal Sundar Krishna, it has been great talking to you. We learned a lot. Thank you very much for being with us.
I must thank you because now you have given me a medium to express all opinions which may or may not be accepted, but I don't mind. Okay. But thanks very much. I think most of what I say are based on the interactions I've had with thousands of faculty members in the last 20-25 years. And I must thank all of them for giving me this opportunity to build myself. So I would say technology enhanced learning, the first object is to get the teachers, not the students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.